The letter trembled in my hands as I stared at the familiar Hopkins Industries letterhead. 10 years. 10 years since I'd seen that logo, since I'd heard anything from my family. Now here it was, delivered to my private practice like a ghost from my past. My name is Yvette, and the last time I saw my family, they were walking away from me down a sterile hallway, leaving me trapped behind heavy metal doors at Riverside Mental Health Center. Dr. Hopkins? My receptionist Sarah's voice snapped me back to reality. Your 3 o'clock is here. Thanks, give me a minute. I tucked the letter into my desk drawer, smoothed my blazer, and tried to push away the flood of memories. That day plays on repeat in my nightmares. It's for your own good, sweetheart, Dad had said, his hand on my shoulder feeling like lead. Just take some time to get better. My brother Randolph stood behind him, eyes fixed on the floor, while orderlies approached with paperwork. There's nothing wrong with me, I had screamed, but they'd already made up their minds. I was the troublemaker, the one asking too many questions about the company's finances, the daughter who wouldn't just smile and play along. Dr. Hopkins. Sarah again. Should I reschedule? No, send them in. I forced a smile. 10 years of training helped me compartmentalize, push down the rage and hurt that still burned hot in my chest. My patient's session passed in a blur. The moment they left, I pulled out the letter again. The paper was thick, expensive, just like everything associated with my father's company. But the signature at the bottom wasn't his. Dear Dr. Hopkins, it read, my name is Eli Fowler, former partner to your father. We need to talk about the future of Hopkins Industries. Things have changed significantly since your departure. I laughed bitterly. Departure. Such a gentle word for what they did to me. My phone buzzed. Bethany, my oldest friend, the only one who stood by me through everything. Tell me you're not still at work, she said when I answered. Just finishing up. Liar, you're obsessing over something. I can hear it in your voice. I sighed. Got a letter today, from Dad's company. Holy shit. A pause. Want me to come over? Please. An hour later, we sat on my apartment floor, takeout containers scattered around us, the letter between us like a bomb waiting to detonate. It could be a trap, Bethany said, twirling noodles around her fork. Obviously, it's a trap. The question is, what kind? You don't have to respond. You've built a good life here. Your practice is thriving. You're respected. I spent 3 months in that place before Aunt Emily helped me get out. My voice cracked. 3 months of being drugged, treated like I was crazy, all because I discovered what Dad and Randolph were doing with the company money. Bethany reached for my hand. I remember. I visited every week. They took everything from me. My freedom, my reputation, my trust fund, my place in the company. I squeezed her hand. But they didn't break me. I got my degree, built my practice, made something of myself without their money or connections. So why risk it all now? I picked up the letter. Because Eli was the only board member who voted against committing me. He knew I was right about the embezzlement, but he was outnumbered. If he's reaching out now, then something big is happening. Bethany leaned back against the couch. What are you thinking? I stood and walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. I'm thinking it's time to go home. Not as the scared girl they locked away, but as Dr. Yvette Hopkins, successful psychiatrist and businesswoman. And what then? A small smile curved my lips. Then I take back what's mine. Everything they stole from me, everything they tried to destroy, I'm going to reclaim it all. Revenge won't heal you, Yvette. This isn't about revenge. I turned to face her. It's about justice, about making sure they can never do to anyone else what they did to me. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Dr. Hopkins, I hope you received my letter. The situation is urgent. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. Eli. Bethany read over my shoulder. Well, I picked up my phone and began typing. Mr. Fowler, I'd be happy to meet. Shall we say tomorrow, 9 a.m. at my office? I believe we have much to discuss. After hitting send, I walked to my desk and pulled out the business card I'd kept all these years. The one Eli had slipped me just before they took me away. "If you ever need help," he'd whispered. Well, I didn't need help anymore, but I was ready to offer some of my own. And this time, I'd make sure the price was steep enough to settle a decade-old debt. Eli looked exactly as I remembered him. Tall, distinguished, with kind eyes that carried the weight of too many corporate battles. He sat across from me in my office, his fingers drumming nervously on the armrest. "You've done well for yourself," he said, glancing around at my credentials on the wall. "Graduated top of your class at medical school, built a successful practice." "No thanks to them." I kept my voice steady. "But you're not here to discuss my achievements." He pulled out a folder thick with documents. "The company is in trouble, Yvette. Serious trouble. Your father's made some questionable decisions. And Randolph?" He shook his head. "Your brother's gambling addiction has gotten worse. Much worse. I'm surprised they let him anywhere near the company finances after what happened with me. That's just it. They didn't. He found ways around the safeguards, created shell companies, forged signatures." Eli spread several papers across my desk. "The board is ready to force them both out, but we need someone with family ties to take control. Someone who understands both business and human nature." I picked up one of the documents, scanning the numbers. "These losses are staggering. Your father's pride won't let him admit he's lost control. But the employees, good people who've worked there for decades, they're about to lose everything." A knock at my door interrupted us. Sarah poked her head in. "Dr. Hopkins, your Aunt Emily is here." Aunt Emily burst in before I could respond, her silver hair flying wild around her face. "I knew you'd be meeting today. I couldn't stay away." She turned to Eli. "Have you told her everything?" "Emily's been my inside source," Eli explained, keeping me informed about the company's decline. I stood to hug my aunt, breathing in her familiar lavender perfume. She'd been my lifeline during those dark months in the institution, smuggling in real food and books about psychology when the doctors weren't looking. "Your father's not well, sweetheart," Emily said, settling into a chair. "The guilt's eating him alive. He drinks too much, barely comes to the office anymore." "Guilt?" I laughed sharply. "That would require a conscience." "People can change," Emily said softly, "even if it's too late to matter." "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked Eli, steering us back to business. He leaned forward. "I own 20% of the company shares. Emily has 5%. With your original 10% that they couldn't legally strip from you, plus the support of other board members I've spoken with, we can force a leadership change." My phone buzzed. A text from Bethany. "How's it going? Need backup?" I typed back quickly. "All good. Having tea with the devil. We'll call later." "Why now?" I asked Eli. "Why not years ago when you knew they were wrong about me?" Pain flickered across his face. "I tried to help where I could. Kept your shares safe, made sure Emily could access funds to support you. But I needed proof of their misconduct. Proof we finally have." He tapped the papers on my desk. "The question is, are you ready to come back and face them?" I stood and walked to my window, the same one I'd looked out of last night. But today the city looked different, full of possibility rather than shadows. "Do you remember what you said to me that day?" I asked Eli, just before they took me away. "I said I was sorry, that I'd make it right someday." "No." I turned to face him. "You said, sometimes the best revenge is success." Emily made a small sound of protest, but I held up my hand. I did succeed. I rebuilt my life, helped others heal their minds while I healed mine. But now? I picked up one of the documents. Now I can do more. Help the employees, save the company, and yes, make them face what they did. It won't be easy, Eli warned. Randolph will fight dirty. My father will do what he always does. Whatever protects his pride. I sat back down, pulled out a legal pad. Tell me everything. Every detail about the company's current situation. Every weakness, every strength, every person we can trust. For the next 2 hours, we planned. Emily provided insights about the staff. Eli outlined financial strategies, and I took pages of notes. By the time they left, the sun was setting. I called Bethany immediately. "So?" she answered. "Are you going to war?" "I'm going home," I replied, watching the sky turn purple through my window. But this time, I'm not the one who needs to be afraid. "Need me to come with you?" I smiled, grateful for her unwavering loyalty. "Actually, yes. How do you feel about being my personal assistant? I could use someone I trust absolutely." "When do we start?" "Monday morning. Wear something expensive. We're going to show them exactly what they threw away 10 years ago." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began researching the company's recent projects. Tomorrow, I'd start closing my practice, referring my patients to trusted colleagues. In 1 week, I'd walk back into Hopkins Industries. And this time, I'd be the one holding all the cards. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor of Hopkins Industries, and I stepped out like I owned the place. Which, technically, I now did. Bethany followed close behind, tablet in hand, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Whispers erupted as we passed. A young intern dropped her coffee cup, brown liquid spreading across the pristine floor. I recognized a few faces from before, now aged 10 years, their expressions a mix of shock and uncertainty. "Is that?" "It can't be. I thought she was in—" Eli met us at the conference room door. "Ready?" "Born ready." I straightened my spine and walked in. The boardroom fell silent. 12 pairs of eyes locked onto me, including my father's bloodshot ones and Randolph's narrowed glare. Dad had aged dramatically. His once black hair now completely gray, deep lines etched around his mouth. Randolph looked worse. Expensive suit hanging loose on his frame, dark circles under his eyes. "What is this?" Randolph stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "She can't be here." "Actually," Eli stepped forward, "Dr. Hopkins is here as the new majority shareholder and CEO, effective immediately." He distributed documents to everyone at the table. "The board voted yesterday." Dad's face went pale. "This is impossible. You can't—" "Can't what, Dad? Can't function without supervision? Can't make rational decisions? Funny how things change." I took my place at the head of the table. "Please, everyone, sit. We have a lot to discuss." Randolph remained standing. "This is ridiculous. I'm calling security." "Security reports to me now." I cut him off. "As does everyone else in this building. Sit down, Randolph." He sat, but his hands were shaking as he reached for his water glass. "Now," I opened my laptop. "Let's talk about the Thompson contract." "How do you know about Thompson?" Randolph snapped. "I know everything. The shell companies, the offshore accounts, the gambling debts paid with company funds." I clicked through several spreadsheets. "Did you really think nobody would notice $3 million missing from the pension fund?" A board member gasped. Others started shuffling through the documents Eli had distributed. "These allegations are—" Dad started. "Are fully documented," Eli interrupted, "and have been verified by our external auditors." I stood and walked around the table, stopping behind Randolph's chair. "You have two options. 1, resign quietly, both of you, with basic severance packages and no criminal charges filed. 2, fight me, and I release everything to the SEC." "You wouldn't dare," Dad growled. "You'd destroy the company's reputation." "The company's reputation?" I laughed. "You mean like you destroyed mine?" "Tell me, Dad, how much did you pay Dr. Marcus to diagnose me with paranoid delusions?" The color drained from his face. "That's right. I found those records too." I returned to my seat. "You have 24 hours to decide. Until then, you're both suspended from all company activities." "You can't do this to me." Randolph slammed his fist on the table. "I'm your brother." "My brother?" I leaned forward. "My brother watched them drag me away. My brother knew I was right about the embezzlement because he was the one doing it. My brother—" I paused, pulling out one final document. "Signed the commitment papers himself." The room went deadly quiet. Dad turned to stare at Randolph, who had gone completely white. You told me the doctors required my signature, Dad whispered. You said it was the only way to help her. Dad, Randolph stumbled to his feet. She was going to ruin everything. She knew too much. I had to. Get out. Dad's voice was ice cold. Both of you, just get out. I stood, gathering my things. 24 hours, choose wisely. In the hallway, Bethany touched my arm. Are you okay? I will be. I watched through the glass as the board members filed out, leaving my father alone, his head in his hands. Have security clear out their offices, change the passwords on their accounts, and call IT. I want every file they've accessed in the last 5 years. Already done, she smiled. Your new office is ready too. We walked down the corridor to the corner office, my father's old domain. The nameplate already read Dr. Yvette Hopkins, CEO. Inside, the decor had been completely changed. Gone were the dark woods and leather, replaced with clean lines and bright spaces. One more thing. Bethany handed me a file. We found this in Randolph's personal safe. You might want to look at page 3. I opened it and froze. There, in black and white, was proof that my commitment wasn't just about silencing me. There had been an insurance policy, a big one, that would have paid out to Randolph if I had died in that institution. My hands started shaking. He didn't just want me gone. He wanted me dead. What are you going to do? I walked to the window, looking out over the city I'd left in handcuffs 10 years ago. Call our friends at the FBI. It's time they knew exactly what kind of business my brother's been running. The sun glinted off nearby buildings, and for the first time in a decade, I felt truly powerful. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The knock on my office door came just after midnight. I'd been reviewing years of financial records, each new discovery making my blood boil. Bethany had gone home hours ago, but I couldn't stop digging. Come in, I called, expecting security. Instead, Randolph stumbled in, clearly drunk. Happy now, sis? He swayed slightly. Daddy's crying in his study, drinking himself stupid. Just like old times. I reached for my phone, but he held up his hands. No need to call security. Just came to chat with my baby sister. You're not supposed to be in the building. Funny thing about that. He dropped into a chair. Turns out I still had Dad's old keycard. He never changes anything. Passwords, cards, habits. Not like you. You changed everything. I grew up, got stronger. Meanwhile, I gestured at his disheveled appearance. How much do you owe now, Randolph? The casino records show at least $2 million. He laughed bitterly. Been doing your homework, huh? Always the perfect student, perfect daughter, perfect everything. Except I wasn't, was I? I asked too many questions, saw too much. I pulled out the insurance policy document. Like this. Care to explain? His eyes fixed on the paper, something dark passing across his face. You weren't supposed to find that. Like I wasn't supposed to survive the institution? 3 accidental overdoses in 3 months. Funny how they all happened during your visits. He stood suddenly, pacing. You don't understand. I had debts. Dangerous people. If you'd just died quietly, you'd have gotten $5 million. I stood too, anger burning in my chest. And a convenient way to hide your embezzlement. I protected this company. He whirled on me. While you were playing doctor, I kept us afloat. By stealing from employees' pensions? By laundering money for drug cartels? I held up another file. I found your Mexican connections, too. The color drained from his face. You're bluffing. Try me. I opened my laptop, turned it to show him surveillance photos. The FBI is very interested in your monthly trips to Cancun. He moved faster than I expected, lunging across the desk. But I was ready. The self-defense classes I'd taken after the institution paid off. I sidestepped, and he crashed into my chair. Security! I called out, backing toward the door. You bitch. He scrambled up. You think you can just walk back in here and take everything? No, Randolph. I'm taking back what's mine, and I'm making sure you pay for what you did. Two security guards burst in, grabbing him as he tried to lunge again. "Get him out of here," I ordered. "And call the police. He's violated the restraining order." As they dragged him away, he shouted, "You think you know everything? You don't know half of it. Ask Dad about Mom's accident. Ask him what really happened." I froze. Mom's car accident had happened when I was 16, a tragic crash on a rainy night. Or so we'd been told. My phone buzzed. "Aunt Emily. Are you okay?" Security called me. "I'm fine. But Emily, did you ever question Mom's accident?" A long pause. "Come over, now. There's something you need to see." 30 minutes later, I sat in Emily's kitchen while she dug through an old filing cabinet. "Your mother gave me these," she said, pulling out a manila envelope. 2 days before she died. Said if anything happened to her, I should keep them safe. Inside were photographs and documents, proof of Dad's earliest financial crimes. Mom had been the company's accountant before the accident. She was going to expose him, Emily said softly. She had a meeting scheduled with the SEC. But she never made it. My hands shook as I read through the papers. The brake lines in her car were cut. Emily wiped a tear. The police ruled it an accident, but she knew. She told me if anything happened to her, I should protect you. That's why I helped you escape the institution. Why I kept track of your shares. Did Randolph know? He was your father's golden boy by then, already learning the family business, all of it. I gathered the documents carefully. I need copies of everything. And Emily, thank you for all of it. She hugged me tight. Your mother would be so proud of you. Not for the revenge, for surviving, for building yourself back up. As I drove home, my mind raced. The company's corruption went deeper than I'd imagined, rooted in decades of deception and violence. My phone buzzed with a text from Bethany. FBI wants to meet tomorrow, 9 a.m. I pulled over, watching the city lights blur through tears of rage and grief. Mom had tried to stop them and paid with her life. I'd tried and lost 10 years of mine. But tomorrow I would finish what she started. I texted back, I'll be there. And Bethany, bring everything we have on Dad. Every last file. It was time to rip out the rot at its source. The FBI agents sat across from me in the conference room, their expressions carefully neutral as they reviewed the evidence. Agent Lisa Martinez took notes while her partner, Agent Tom Bradley, spread documents across the table. This goes beyond corporate fraud, Martinez said, tapping the insurance policy. We're looking at attempted murder, conspiracy, money laundering. A knock interrupted us. Bethany poked her head in. Sorry, but you need to see this. Your father's here. I excused myself and found Dad waiting in the lobby, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. His expensive suit hung loose, his eyes red-rimmed. Can we talk? He asked quietly. Alone? I led him to my office, leaving the door open. Make it quick. I'm in a meeting. With the FBI. He sank into a chair. Randolph told me before they arrested him this morning. Did he tell you why? He said... Dad's voice cracked. He said you know about your mother. That you had her killed? Yeah, I know. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I never meant, save it. I sat behind my desk, maintaining distance. You knew what would happen if she went to the SEC. You chose money over her life. Over my life. You don't understand. The company was everything. Your grandfather built it from nothing. And you turned it into a criminal enterprise. I pulled out Mom's old files. She kept records of everything, Dad. Every illegal deal, every bribe, every shell company. And now the FBI has them all. He stared at the familiar handwriting. Margaret. He whispered Mom's name. She always was too honest for her own good. Like mother? Like daughter? I leaned forward. Is that why you let Randolph put me away? Because I'm like her? I thought... He pressed his hands to his face. I thought I was protecting you. Randolph said if we didn't stop you, you'd end up like her. I was afraid that I'd die in a mysterious accident. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Instead, you let him try to kill me slowly, in a place where no one would question another patient's death. I didn't know about the overdoses. I swear, Yvette. When Emily told me, I stopped his visits immediately. But you left me there, for months, because by then I believed you were safer there than out here. He looked up, eyes wet. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But the company, the employees, they don't deserve to suffer for my sins. I'm not you, Dad. I'm not destroying the company. I stood and walked to the window, Mom's favorite spot when this was her office. I'm saving it. Every pension will be restored. Every illegal deal unwound. Every person who helped cover up your crimes will face justice. And me? That depends on you. I turned back to him. The FBI wants names, dates, details, every criminal connection you've made over the past 30 years. He paled. They'll kill me. We can protect you. Witness protection, new identity, the works. But only if you tell them everything. And Randolph? Made his own choices, just like you did. A knock at the door. Agent Martinez. Dr. Hopkins, we need to resume. Dad stood shakily. What would Margaret think of all this? Mom would have wanted the truth to come out. She died trying to make that happen. I walked to the door. The agents will want to speak with you next. I suggest you think carefully about what you want your legacy to be. My legacy? He laughed sadly. My legacy is standing right in front of me. Strong, principled, everything I should have been. He reached for my hand but stopped short. I know it means nothing now, but I am sorry, Yvette. For everything. You're right, I said, pulling away. It means nothing. Actions matter, Dad. Not words. Not anymore. I left him there and returned to the conference room where Bethany waited with fresh coffee and a stack of new files. Your father looked rough, she said softly. He just realized he's lost everything. I picked up my coffee. The company, his freedom, his children, all because he couldn't be honest. Like mother, unlike father, Bethany smiled. The shareholders' meeting is tomorrow, I reminded her. Have you prepared the presentation? Full disclosure of all criminal activities, detailed plan for corporate restructuring, and complete compensation for affected employees. She handed me a tablet. Plus, I added a section about the new ethical oversight committee you're establishing. I scrolled through the slides, noting how she'd managed to make corporate reform sound almost exciting. Perfect. Tomorrow, we show everyone exactly what kind of company this will be going forward. And your father? I glanced toward my office, where Dad sat with his head bowed. He'll do the right thing. Finally. Because it's his only choice. The late afternoon sun streamed through the windows, and for a moment I could almost see Mom standing there, smiling her approval. Tomorrow would bring changes, challenges, and probably more revelations. But for now, justice was finally in motion. The shareholders' meeting room buzzed with tension. Every seat was filled, with people standing along the walls. Reporters clustered near the entrance, their cameras ready. Bethany stood at the podium, checking the microphone one last time. 5 minutes, she whispered as I approached. You sure about this? I adjusted my mother's old necklace, a simple pearl pendant Emily had saved for me. Absolutely. Eli appeared at my elbow. Your father's here, back row. I spotted him sitting alone, looking like he'd aged another decade overnight. The FBI interview had lasted 8 hours. He'd told them everything. Ladies and gentlemen, Bethany called out, please welcome Dr. Yvette Hopkins, CEO of Hopkins Industries. The room fell silent as I took the podium. Hundreds of eyes watched me. Employees, investors, board members, press, all waiting to hear how bad it really was. 10 years ago, I stood in this room and accused this company's leadership of criminal behavior. My voice carried clear and strong. I was declared mentally unstable and institutionalized for my troubles. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what they tried to hide. I clicked to the first slide. A photo of my mother. This is Margaret Hopkins, former chief accountant. She died in a staged car accident 25 years ago after discovering widespread fraud and embezzlement. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A reporter's camera flashed. Since then, this company has been involved in money laundering, pension theft, and international criminal enterprises. I clicked through slides showing evidence. The FBI has the full details. Arrests are already underway. A man stood up. What about our jobs? Our investments? Every stolen penny will be restored, I assured him. I've already transferred personal funds to cover the pension shortfall. The company itself remains financially sound once we cut out the criminal elements. And your brother? Someone called out. Is it true he tried to have you killed? Randolph Hopkins has been arrested and charged with multiple felonies. I met my father's eyes across the room, as have his co-conspirators. More questions erupted, but Bethany stepped in smoothly. We'll take questions after Dr. Hopkins outlines the restructuring plan. For the next hour, I detailed the company's future. New oversight committees, ethical guidelines, employee protections. The mood shifted from fear to cautious hope as people realized their livelihoods weren't destroyed. Finally, I said, I want to address our employees directly. I set aside my notes. You are not responsible for the crimes of your leaders. Your jobs are secure. In fact, as part of our restructuring, every employee will receive company shares. This business belongs to all of us now. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then building. I saw tears on some faces, smiles of relief on others. During the question period, a young intern raised her hand. Why did you come back? After everything they did to you? The room hushed, waiting for my answer. I touched my mother's necklace. Because running away from corruption doesn't stop it. Because every person in this room deserves better than what they've had. And because... I paused, looking directly at my father. Sometimes the only way to honor the dead is to finish what they started. Dad stood abruptly and walked out. Several reporters followed him, but he was already gone. After the meeting, Eli found me in my office. That was quite a show. Not a show, a promise. I handed him a stack of papers. Speaking of which, here's your copy of the new board structure. You're still VP of Operations, but with some added oversight responsibilities. And your father? Turned state's evidence this morning. He'll be in witness protection by tonight. I sat heavily in my chair. He gave them everything. Names, dates, offshore account numbers, 25 years of criminal connections. He finally chose right. Too late to matter. My phone buzzed. Bethany texting from the lobby. Reporter from Wall Street Journal wants 5 minutes. Says it's about your mother. Send her up, I replied. Eli moved to leave, but I stopped him. Stay. You were here back then. You knew Mom. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Rachel, got straight to the point. I covered your mother's accident. Never believed it was random. She pulled out an old article. I kept digging over the years, but could never prove anything. Until now. She laid out photos, notes, interviews, 2 decades of investigation. Your mother contacted me, you know. 2 days before she died. Said she had proof of massive financial crimes. We were supposed to meet, but she never made it. I picked up one of the photos. Mom at a company party, laughing with Emily. Would you like to write her real story? Set the record straight? Rachel's eyes lit up. That's why I'm here. Come back tomorrow. Bring your team. I'll give you everything. Her records, her discoveries, what it cost her to stand up for the truth. I smiled sadly. The world should know who Margaret Hopkins really was. After Rachel left, Eli squeezed my shoulder. Your mother would be proud. I know. I looked out at the city, the same view Mom had all those years ago. The truth always comes out, Eli. Sometimes it just needs a little help. My phone buzzed again. Agent Martinez. Your father's in custody, ready to record his official statement. Want to be there? I texted back one word. No. Some chapters needed to close without me watching. The courthouse hallway felt suffocating as I waited to testify. Bethany sat beside me, reviewing notes, while Emily paced nervously. "You don't have to be here for this part," Bethany said softly. "The prosecution has enough evidence without your testimony. I need to look him in the eye." I smoothed my skirt. One last time. The heavy doors opened and a bailiff called my name. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the back rows while the jury sat stone-faced in their box. And there, in an orange jumpsuit, sat Randolph. He'd lost more weight in the months since his arrest. His eyes were clear, though. No more drugs or alcohol in prison. He watched me walk to the witness stand, his expression unreadable. "Please state your name for the record." "Dr. Yvette Hopkins." The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Sandra, approached. "Dr. Hopkins, please tell the court about the events of June 15th, 10 years ago." I described that day. The commitment papers, the orderlies, the drugs. My voice stayed steady as I detailed the 3 overdose attempts, the forged insurance policy, the years of financial crimes I'd discovered. "And how did you obtain proof of these activities?" "My mother's records, which my aunt preserved. Company documents my father turned over to the FBI. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts." Sandra held up a document. "Including this transfer order, signed by the defendant moving $5 million to a Cayman Islands account the day after your 3rd accidental overdose?" Objection. Randolph's lawyer jumped up. "Speculation." "Overruled. The witness may answer." "Yes," I said. "That transfer was meant to look like executive compensation, but it matches exactly the amount of my life insurance policy." Randolph shifted in his seat. I caught his eye and held it. "What happened when you confronted your brother about this evidence?" "He attacked me in my office, said I should have died quietly in the institution." The jury murmured. Randolph's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but he shoved the man away and stood. "You want the truth?" he shouted. "Fine. Yes, I tried to kill her. She was going to ruin everything, just like our mother." The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel while Randolph's lawyer tried desperately to silence him. "Order. Order in the court." But Randolph was beyond control. "You think you're so perfect, Yvette? You're just like her, self-righteous, judgmental. Dad knew what had to be done. He chose the company over her, just like he chose it over you. Mr. Hopkins, sit down or you'll be removed. You want to know who cut Mom's brake lines? Ask Dad. Ask him who gave the order. Ask him." 2 bailiffs grabbed him, dragging him toward the door. His voice echoed back. "You'll never be safe, Yvette. There are still people out there. People who know—" The door slammed shut behind him. In the silence that followed, Sandra turned to the judge. "Your Honor, given the defendant's confession, the state rests." "Defense?" The judge looked at Randolph's stunned lawyer. We request a recess to confer with our client." "Granted. Court will resume tomorrow morning." Outside, reporters swarmed us. Emily pushed them back while Bethany led me to a side exit. Agent Martinez waited by her car. "We got it all on record," she said. "His confession, the threat, everything. We'll increase your security detail. No need." I watched another police car pull up. "His connections are gone. Dad's testimony took down their entire network." "Still, better safe than sorry." She handed me a file. "Your father's new identity and location, as promised. Only you and the witness protection team know." I took the file but didn't open it. "Any messages from him?" "Just this." She passed me an envelope. Inside was a single photo. Mom, Dad, Randolph, and me at the beach, years ago. On the back, Dad had written, "I chose wrong. Every time. I'm sorry." Emily touched my arm. "You okay?" "Better than okay." I ripped the photo in half, then quarters, letting the pieces fall into a trash bin. "It's really over." "Not quite." Bethany checked her phone. "Rachel's article about your mother runs tomorrow. Front page of the Wall Street Journal." "And the company?" "Stock's up 15% since the restructuring announcement. Employees are happy. The Ethical Oversight Committee meets next week." We walked to my car, the late afternoon sun warming our faces. A group of company interns passed by, waving cheerfully. One called out, "Great job, Dr. Hopkins." "Looks like you've got some fans." Emily smiled. "They deserve better than what they had before. Everyone did." I unlocked my car. "Want to grab dinner? I'm thinking that little Italian place Mom used to love. The one where she taught you to twirl spaghetti properly?" Emily laughed. "Perfect." As we drove away, I glanced in my rearview mirror at the courthouse. Randolph would never see freedom again. Dad would live out his days under a new name, haunted by his choices. And Mom would finally have justice. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's about rebuilding something better from the ashes of what was lost. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I finished signing the last document. Bethany collected the papers, a broad smile on her face. "That's it," she said. "The employee stock ownership program is officially active. Every single worker now owns a piece of the company. Including you." I handed her an extra envelope. "This is your promotion package, VP of Corporate Communications. You've more than earned it." She hugged me tight. "Look at us now, a long way from sharing takeout and plotting revenge on your apartment floor." My phone buzzed. Emily was waiting in the lobby with a surprise. When I got downstairs, I found her with Rachel from the Wall Street Journal and a familiar face I hadn't seen in years. "Dr. Marcus?" I stepped back instinctively. He looked older, grayer, but I'd never forget the psychiatrist who'd helped commit me. "Dr. Hopkins," he said, voice trembling. "I've come to make amends." Rachel held up her recorder. "Dr. Marcus contacted me after the article about your mother ran. He wants to confess everything." "Your brother threatened my family," he said. "Showed me pictures of my daughters at school. Said if I didn't diagnose you as paranoid, they'd hurt them." I gestured toward the conference room. "Let's talk privately." Inside, Dr. Marcus broke down completely, sharing details of how Randolph had orchestrated everything. The false diagnosis, the dangerous medications, the covered-up overdose attempts. "I've already spoken to the medical board," he finished. "They're revoking my license, and I'm prepared to face criminal charges." "No." Everyone looked at me in surprise. "You'll face consequences, yes, but not prison. Instead, you're going to help me start something new." I pulled out a proposal I'd been working on. The Margaret Hopkins Foundation for Mental Health Ethics will advocate for patient rights, investigate institutional abuse, and provide oversight for psychiatric facilities. "You want me to help?" "You know the system's weaknesses firsthand. Help me fix them. Help make sure no one else goes through what I did." He wiped his eyes. "Why would you give me this chance?" "Because revenge doesn't heal anything, but redemption might." After they left, Eli found me in the garden courtyard we'd created where the old executive parking lot used to be. Employees ate lunch at scattered tables, enjoying the flowers and fountains. "Board meeting in 10 minutes, he reminded me. "We're voting on the international expansion." "And the new ethical compliance requirements for all partners?" "Already distributed. Every company we work with must meet our standards for employee treatment and corporate transparency." A young intern approached nervously. "Dr. Hopkins, we finished the audit you requested of all psychiatric facilities the company's insurance covers. There are problems with several of them." "Send me the report. We'll start inspections next week." I turned back to Eli. "Ready to make some more waves?" "Always." In the boardroom, familiar faces greeted me warmly. These weren't the same people who'd watched my father destroy lives. This was my team, chosen for their integrity as much as their skills. "Before we begin," I said, "I want to share something." I opened Mom's old leather portfolio, the one Emily had kept safe all these years. This was my mother's mission statement for the company, written the week before she died. I read it aloud. "A business is not measured by its profits alone, but by the lives it touches, the ethics it upholds, and the legacy it leaves for future generations." She was right. Eli said softly. "Yes, she was." And now we're making it real. I looked around the table. Every decision we make, every policy we implement, every life we affect, it all matters. We're not just running a company. We're changing how business itself works. After the meeting, I walked through the office, stopping to chat with employees. They weren't afraid anymore. They were proud, engaged, invested in our shared success. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Martinez. Thought you'd want to know. Your brother tried to arrange a hit on you from prison. We intercepted it. He's being transferred to maximum security today. I replied, "Thank you, but I'm not worried anymore." In my office, I found Bethany arranging fresh flowers. Lilies, Mom's favorite. "Ready for your speech?" she asked. "The Mental Health Advocacy Conference starts in an hour." I touched Mom's necklace, then looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Dad was living under a new name, haunted by his choices. Randolph was facing life in prison. The corrupt empire they'd built was gone. But something better had risen in its place. Something Mom would have been proud of. "You know what?" I smiled at Bethany. "I'm ready for anything." The sun caught the pearl pendant, making it glow like a tiny star. Mom had always said the truth was like that. A light in the darkness, showing the way forward. She died protecting that truth, and I'd nearly died discovering it. But we'd won in the end. Not through violence or vengeance, but by building something stronger than hate. Justice, redemption, and hope. I gathered my notes for the speech. It was time to share that light with others.